You know, we think of a vacation as an escape, right? A time to make good memories. But for the people on board one particular cruise ship, a single day turned into something absolutely unimaginable.
What we're talking about here are two completely separate, just heartbreaking incidents that happened on the exact same day, on the same ship.
It's a really tough story, but it's one that's important to unpack.
So let's set the scene. Our story centers on the Carnival Splendor, a cruise ship sailing out of Australia. And the date is April 17th. That's the day when two unrelated events ended in the tragic deaths of two passengers.
Now, just to give you a little context here, the Splendor isn't some new ship. It's been around since 2007 and can hold about 3,000 passengers. But what's really crucial for our story is that it's fully decked out with a CCTV system. And that security footage is going to become a key piece of this puzzle in the second incident we're going to cover.
The first tragedy of the day actually didn't happen on the ship itself. It happened during a shore excursion at a place that's really popular, but also, as it turns out, notoriously dangerous for snorkelers.
So, while the Splendor was at Moreton Island, a 67-year-old passenger went snorkeling and tragically drowned. An off-duty volunteer lifesaver who just happened to be on the shore saw her in distress and rushed to help, but unfortunately it was just too late.
And if you're wondering just how bad the conditions were, listen to this. A witness said the current was so incredibly strong that even really good, experienced swimmers in their group were having a hard time. This was definitely not just a calm, easy day at the beach. And here's the thing, these dangers weren't a surprise. This spot is an unpatrolled beach, which means no lifeguards. There are official warnings posted about the strong currents, and it specifically stated that swimming from the shore is for confident swimmers only. It was a known risk that just ended in absolute tragedy.
As the day started to wrap up and the ship was back out on the open water, a second, completely separate tragedy started to unfold.
Just hours later, a 70-year-old man who was on the cruise with his family went overboard. The ship's security cameras would later confirm that this was, sadly, an intentional act.
Okay, and this timeline, this is where things get really complicated and so difficult. The man went into the water in the evening, but it was hours, several hours, before his family realized he was missing and told security. It was only after they raised the alarm that the crew went back to check the CCTV footage and saw what had happened. So by the time any kind of search and rescue could even begin, a huge amount of precious time had already been lost.
So what actually happens when that man overboard call goes out? Well, it kicks off a very specific but incredibly difficult series of steps.
The ship itself jumps into action right away, launching its own lifeboats and using massive searchlights to scan the water. At the same time, the captain gets on the line with the local Coast Guard. The Coast Guard then takes over the whole operation because, well, they just have way more resources. Eventually, the cruise ship is told to continue on its way, leaving the official search to the experts. That search usually lasts for about 48 to 72 hours.
And look, finding a person in the middle of the ocean is, well, it's exactly like they say, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Rescuers are fighting against the weather, the time of day, the ocean currents, and that critical response time. And of course, the person's age and health also play a huge role. There are just so many things working against a successful rescue.
All right, so let's zoom out from this one awful day for a second and look at how often this kind of thing happens on a bigger global scale.
So around the world, there are about 24 to 26 man overboard incidents on cruise ships every single year. So while it's definitely not common, it's also not unheard of. That basically works out to about twice a month somewhere in the world.
But here's the number that really hits home. The average chance of actually surviving after going overboard is only about 16 to 22%. It's just a brutal, sobering number that really shows you how serious these situations are.
So let's bring it back from those cold, hard statistics to the very real, very human cost of what happened on that one day aboard the Carnival Splendor. So on the one hand, you have a terrible accident in dangerous waters where a bystander tried to help immediately, and on the other, you have an intentional act where the rescue was delayed for hours. Two totally different situations, but both ended with the same devastating outcome. A terrible loss for their families, who, we should note, are now getting support from the cruise line.
And all of this leaves us with a really difficult question, doesn't it? We go on vacation to have fun, to find adventure, but this story is just such a stark reminder of the risks that are always there, whether it's from the world around us or from the unpredictability of people. It really makes you think, how do we balance that desire for escape with the hard reality that tragedy can find you even in a place that looks like paradise.